Commission for technical questions and comments. After we are done with the technical questions, we open it up to the public for commentary. If you have anything to say about a particular topic, please step up to the microphone over here, state your name and your address for the minutes. And we ask that you keep your comments as germane to the topic at hand as possible. After everybody has had a chance to speak, we close public commentary, come back to the commission for discussion and a vote, then we just move on to the next item. So, a lot of agenda items today, folks, so we're all going to get our money's worth. Roll call.
Nolenberger.
Here.
Borsick.
Present.
Bowen.
Here.
Toms.
Here.
Kintz. Cummings.
Here.
Prop. Here. Lowry. Weigert.
Here.
Wojtek.
Here. Next, approval of the minutes from June 17th. Any additions, corrections, deletions, et cetera?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion clearly passes. Let's move on to item number 1, extraterritorial two-lot land division / certified survey map at 2062 Roberts Avenue, Town of Oshkosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, we have a two-lot land division request in the Town of Oshkosh, located at 2062 Roberts Avenue. Up on the screen, you have the existing land use. The subject property is located about 2/3 of a mile north of the city limits, just west of County Highway AT, which is over on the east or the right side of the map on the screen. The subject property currently contains a single-family dwelling unit and a couple of accessory structures. Let me switch to the next aerial photo here. You can get a better view. The subject site currently is 1.8 acres in size, and the proposed land division is going to split the lot into two, Lot 1 being approximately 0.7 acres, and Lot 2 of the existing home sized at 1.1 acres. The reason for the request is the applicant states on his application that they intend to build a new single-family home on proposed Lot 1. And undetermined if the owner is going to sell or continue to reside on proposed Lot 2. The proposed lot configurations is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. This entire area is slated for residential based on our 20-year residential land use plan. The Department of Public Works reviewed the proposed CSM and just commented that there's probably going to be some drainage easements required on the CSM. And they are also suggesting that the existing well and septic system serving Lot 2 be indicated on the final map. In addition, they're also recommending that all paved and gravel surfaces be mapped on the final CSM. These comments will be forwarded to Winnebago County after the Plan Commission takes action. So with that, staff is in support of the two-lot CSM as requested and recommend approval.
Okay. Any technical questions from the commission? Jeff.
Is there any concern if there's a residence on that Lot 1 is there any concern from like fire truck access and all that kind of stuff?
That would be regulated by the Town of Oshkosh Fire Department. That's kind of out of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Any other technical questions? Okay, seeing none. Anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Sir, if you want to step up and tell us your name and what you have to say.
I'm Jim Erdman, 2492 Hickory Lane, Town of Oshkosh. I chair of the Town of Oshkosh. This CSM came before us, and the reason for this CSM is that resident there lives in the present home, and they want to build a new home on a smaller lot. They can't have two lots or two homes on one lot, and they can't leave the zoning as it is. So the first thing to do was to subdivide it, and then they would be able to. There is enough area in Lot 1 to build a new home. They want a new home. They're elderly. They want a new home on one level. That was the reason for this, where it's no steps. They're getting where they need. They can't handle it in the other home, and they can't do it under A2 zoning. This is zone A2. Our future land use showed residential for this area. So the first thing they're doing is the CSM, and then they're doing the zone change in the town. This is under town zoning. It's not in the shoreland area. So they'll be changing this to rural subdivision residential there, and that lot is big enough for that, on lot one there, for them to put a new home in. So we did approve the CSM. They'll be coming through now with a zone change next to the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else here to speak to this item? Oh. Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Seeing none, back to the commission.
Move approval?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Nolenberger. Borsig.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Tomes.
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Kintz.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Crop.
Aye.
Eight.
All right. Moving on to item number 2, conditional use permit approval for an exception to the provisions of the downtown overlay district, 401 North Main Street at the New Moon Cafe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Get my stuff in order. Okay, the applicant is requesting approval of conditional use permit. It's an exception to the downtown design standards, downtown overlay design standards. If you're all familiar, in 2009, the Common Council adopted a rewrite of the zoning ordinance, Section 3027, which is our downtown overlay district. It was not necessarily a historic preservation ordinance. However, it did have design standards drafted with the character of the older Main Street type buildings in mind. One of those standards require replacement windows to fit exactly in the original window openings and match the historic windows in size, shape, arrangement of panes, and materials. It does also provide for an exception process through the Plan Commission, and that's what's being requested here tonight. So the property is on the corner of North Main Street and Algoma. It is it's a very small parcel, 0.04 acres. It's 401 North Main Street. Let's see, it's in our downtown overlay and our C3 zoning. It has a commercial use. You can see here it's basically all building on the lot itself. Again, Algoma, North Main Street. You have Opera House Square right down to the south. It is also within the North Main Street Historic District, and these are the boundaries of the North Main Street Historic District. That was a National Register Historic District. It was established in 1996. See the star here is where the subject property is on the southern side of that district. This building itself, these are a few older images from the 70s. I'm not sure when this one looks like the 80s, by looking at the cars anyway. Some historic pictures of the building. Is known as the Beckwith House. It was originally a hotel and was designed by Oshkosh's most famous, architect William Waters. Constructed in 1876 following the destruction of its four-story predecessor in the fire of 1875. So that went down and was rebuilt as a two-story. It's described as an Italianate building with elaborate pressed metal hood moldings capping all of the second-floor windows. Over the last 140 years, it has been pretty sensitively maintained. It is considered a pivotal structure within that National Register Historic District. I'm going to go to the next slide. These are more current images of the building itself. You can see it's pretty similar to what it was. This is the Main Street facade, and this would be the Algoma Boulevard facade. So the petitioner, who owns the building, contacted Lewix to determine the condition of their second-story windows. Apparently, the occupants who live up in those windows had a very difficult time maintaining a livable temperature, especially during last winter season. And so they wanted to determine the viability of the windows. Lewix Home Improvements went out there and took a look at it. The existing windows are kind of a non-typical size, 101-inch, and you kind of see it here, 101-inch tall, double-hung windows, and they have an arch top along the top. When Lewix assessed the condition of the windows, they determined that they were probably original to the structure and over time have deteriorated into what they described as an extremely poor condition, which includes, and I don't know if I have it here, here's a closer shot of the windows on the two sides. Sashes are failing, coming apart. The glass element was at risk of detaching, held together in some places with L brackets. The rope and weight systems were no longer working. The wood was extremely deteriorated and basically in very poor condition. Their professional recommendation was to replace 22 of the 23 second-story windows on the structure, as repairing them would be cost ineffective and possibly physically ineffective because of their deteriorated condition. I'm going to kind of just go through. These are sort of the windows right now. This would be the one out of the 23 windows that would be remaining. It's right on the corner of the structure. I can go back to it right here. It's a very unique window, and that one would be retained. They would also retain all of the existing stonework on the windows themselves. The exterior casings would also be, and jambs would also be retained. The mullion between the window casings themselves would be retained as well. And these are some interior shots, so the interior wood trim would remain. They're showing some of the deteriorated condition. You can't really see the bracket on here. It's a little difficult to see the condition of the wood in here as well. But basically, the replacement, this is the existing window as it sits today. This is what they'd be proposing with a replacement window. It would have a 72-inch vinyl double-hung window in this section. They would include a 26-inch transom sort of on the top, and then there would be a head filler to enclose this arched area rather than going through the arched window. The petitioner indicated that the upper transom and the head filler is being added because window manufacturers are unable to make a full-size double-hung 101-inch window with the arch top at a price that would be cost-effective or would not be cost-prohibitive, and also time-prohibitive because it would take a long time to construct those 22 windows. Additionally, to kind of maintain the historic character of the building, many of the elements would be retained, including the dark-colored molding and the round casings, as I had mentioned. Staff kind of analyzed, let me see what I have for the next picture here. These are some similar replacements that are in the other, this is the Algoma building at 110 Algoma, similar replacements. You see the transom, the smaller double hung, and then the filler piece. You can kind of see these running across. These are very large double hungs, but you can see the filler up on the arch. And then as well with these on the Manila restaurant, you can see the filler up top. It's very similar to what they're looking to do. Staff analyzed this, and I'm going to go back to kind of the main shot here. Staff analyzed this from basically two standpoints. One was the building's architectural integrity and style itself, being that it's a pivotal building in the historic district, and also the character of Main Street and Algoma Boulevard streetscape, or the sort of the curb appeal, so to speak. From an architectural integrity and style standpoint, we do support the exception to the window replacement provision of the design standards. This petitioner is really, and I'll go back to that picture, the petitioner is really attempting to retain as much of the integrity as possible while allowing for the reconversion in the future. They're leaving this opening basically in the same spot. So in the future, if this window system were to be removed, you could replace it with a 101-inch double hung. The window opening is remaining the same. It's just that insert that is changing. Also, they're trying to minimize the impact of this by trying to leave this double hung aspect of the window by adding the 72-inch double hung, and then also to try to keep that light to solid ratio, they're adding that transom. The filler piece was really the smallest amount they felt possible, and it was lining up with that decorative stone casing to kind of give it that consistent look. So they are really attempting to use modern new windows, but try to retain as much of the historic integrity as they can. They are also, as I had mentioned just before, trying to retain a lot of this historic elements as much as they possibly can of the exterior of the building, not to detract from the building's integrity as a historic building itself. From a district standpoint, staff looked up and down Main Street, Algoma, Washington Street, and we kind of did a quick inventory, and it's in your staff report. And I'm going to go to these pictures now. Basically, we broke it down into 3 categories. There was original arched window openings, and I'm going to go to this one, that are retained. And you can see some examples here that they're retained with the taller windows. And I don't have the exact addresses of what these pictures are, but I have them listed in your staff report. And then there was also some examples that had very similar filling to what's being proposed. As you can see in these windows above jambalaya, you can see that filler piece in here in the double-hung windows. Kind of more specifically, here's some with transoms. They're not arched. But these are sort of ones with the smaller fill. And then there was probably a good chunk of windows, about a fourth of the windows, that had what staff would call inappropriate fill. So you can see on these windows, they basically put in a casement on the bottom and then filled in a good third of this window opening. These as well, the archways are completely filled in, very prominent. You can notice them. These windows are a little bit harder to tell, but the entire archway is filled in. And basically, I believe probably a standard double hung went in there, standard size double hung. And you can see here this one they tried to fill with some stone casing to match, but still looks very odd with this major fill. So to kind of go back to, this is sort of what the design standards are really designed for, is to retain that complete window. This is sort of what we've been seeing in a majority, or at least about half of the windows in the corridor, and then again that poor fill we're seeing in about a fourth of it. So when we compared all these window replacements in the downtown overlay, and specifically on Main Street, we believe that the proposed replacements are the most appropriate replacement option, not out of character with a majority of similar window replacements in the historic buildings downtown, and we don't feel that those replacements are going to have a drastic negative effect on the curb appeal of the district as well. I do want to point out, as detailed in that overlay standards, the retention of the original windows and repair of original windows is really the most desirable option. However, it does not appear that the proposed change would alter the essential character of the building itself. We don't think it would be out of character with the nature of downtown. Definitely not inconsistent with the majority of the window replacements that have happened prior to the overlay design standards. So we are recommending a finding that the proposed conditional use permit request for the exception to the design standards for the overlay be consistent with the zoning ordinance. I also wanted to, or recommending approval of the exception, I guess. Landmarks Commission did look at this as well just this morning. They, once again, are looking from a very historic preservation standpoint. They feel that this building itself is a pivotal building. It's on 2 major streets, on Algoma and Main, pivotal building in the district. They are asking that the Plan Commission table this item to give the Landmarks Commission time to work with the property owners to find and locate alternatives to what's being proposed. I think the exact quote that came out of the Landmarks Commission, they don't feel that we should be managing the design standards by exception, that they should be upheld. Again, that this building is pivotal. It's on the National Register. It's remained intact for about 150 years. They believe alternatives are out there that need to be investigated. And they also feel that investigation, if cost is the major issue, and it's not time, that investigation of some state or federal tax credits, now it would be federal tax credits, but also if the state tax credits were to come back online, could offset the cost of getting some windows specifically and specially made. So that's coming from them.
Okay. Technical questions. David?
I agree with a certain portion of what the conclusions were from the Landmark Commission, and what I'd be interested in, and I appreciate your analysis, but because there was so much significance placed on the cost factor, what's the calculus that you used to figure out that this would be cost ineffective? Did you have a variety of, were you presented with cost? Was there more than one company that provided you with cost? And going forward, does this leave us open to more and more financial hardship proposals and to do away with, not to comply with this.
Well, our analysis, we did not look at financial estimates on window replacements. We didn't contract that out. Luke's might be able to answer, the petitioner might be able to answer that question better than I. Where the cost-effective and the time prohibition came forward was discussion with the petitioner and also through the application process.
And then I would push back on that going forward, that you just don't prima facie accept that there has to be some kind of, something to buttress that. I mean, it sort of becomes a one-sided conversation and doesn't advance the analysis of a project.
Thank you. Jeff?
What's staff's take on the recommendation by the Historical Preservation Society?
Well, staff's take on the Landmarks Commission's recommendation, tabling is always going to be a time issue. I definitely believe that Landmarks Commission would contact, window suppliers, window makers, and see if they can be redone. Obviously, the historic windows can be recreated. The issue, again, is the time to do it and the cost. So tabling it to give Landmarks some time to work with the property owner and contact some window manufacturers, we would be okay with that. The big issue, again, is time. The windows have been deteriorated for a while, and that's going to be that's the major factor.
Was there only the one option presented as far as the style of window that they came up with?
Correct. There was one option presented, but they did come and talk to staff and also looked at what they saw within the district and kind of took the best replacements that they had seen out there that were not the full size.
Other technical questions? Go ahead, John.
You keep mentioning the time issue, and it was mentioned that there were problems with the cold winter. Are there problems with the regulating of temperature in the summertime? Is that a part of the time issue? I'm just kind of...
I don't know. From my understanding, the time issue would be having specialty windows manufactured.
Okay. So it's specifically is time issue as far as the amount of time to get the windows made, not they're pressing to get this done today.
Well, probably a better question for the petitioner.
Any other technical questions today? All right, seeing none, anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir.
Jeff Lewick's Home Improvement, 706 South Main Street. I guess I'm coming up here to answer any of your questions, so fire away.
Sure. Okay. Questions for Mr. Lewick? Yep.
When you had indicated, or the petitioner had indicated that the conditions for the residents not tolerable from a living standpoint, can you advise what type of substandard living conditions did that present? What kind of temperatures and stuff were you dealing with?
The windows are, like I had mentioned, probably original to when the building was rebuilt after the fire. So they're probably from 1875, 1876. You can see air around the sash. There's no screens in summer anymore. They have a temporary type screen made. The windows don't stay up, so they're being held up by whatever means they can find, sticks, books, anything that they have in the apartment to hold them open. In the wintertime, in a couple of apartments, they have pink styrofoam in front of the windows to try to keep them, to keep things somewhat tolerable up there in the wintertime. I'm guessing that the reason the windows haven't been replaced in the past is because of the cost. Every time they have been priced out over the years and done or priced out historical, they're coming in probably over $100,000 to replace the windows. The price to do this project is going to come in probably in the low $20,000 to do this project with vinyl windows as proposed. If you get like Marvin windows in there to do these historical, we're going to have to keep with sight lines and all the different aspects that the historical people request, which is going to really drive the price up. And we're going to probably be back to where we are, which is going to be unaffordable for the owners of the new.
The timing on this, the length of time is simply because how long it would take to have custom windows built prior to the weather changing so that you can
That is
have it
correct.
done prior to this coming winter?
That is correct. We're proposing doing vinyl windows. If we have to do historical type windows, vinyl would be out of the question. We would have to go to an aluminum clad if the historical people allow, or a wood exterior, or we would have to go to a aluminum product. And currently, aluminum product is probably 16 to 18 weeks out for historical product. They're 14 to 16 weeks out for standard product. I don't know what Marvin's lead times are, but I'm expecting probably in the 12-week range.
Any other questions from Mr. Lewick? David?
It's hard to tell from appearance, but I understand the difference, the general difference between vinyl and wood. Can this be made in a wood case, wood frame instead of a vinyl?
Yeah, Marvin is a company that does a lot of historical work. They would be able to do that with a wood interior, and it would have, like I said, either an aluminum clad exterior if the historical people allow it, or it would have to go to wood, which then you're into maintenance issues again.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. I think that's it. No more questions.
Great.
All right. Come on up, sir.
My name's Aaron Barron, 940 Monroe Street, Oshkosh. My brother and I own the building. We bought the building a year and a half ago. The average heating bill for the winter last month was about $875 a month for the upstairs alone. That doesn't include the coffee shop. I'm not even joking that I was up in one of the studios and a candle blew out from the wind coming through the closed windows. It's atrocious. It really is. And we did look into the historical thing, but yeah, once somebody gives you a quote of $100,000 for something on a building that you bought for $100,000, it's kind of a big pill to swallow. So it is. It's kind of go time. It's pretty much unbearable out there. I don't think anybody's going to stay if the winter is like it was last year. So we run the risk of losing basically everybody that rents from us. So we talked about it early spring, and it's time. So if anybody has any questions about that aspect, I'll gladly field them now.
Any questions? Yes. Ed.
As far as the suggestion by the Landmarks Commission to lay over 2 weeks, I mean, is that non-workable as far as you're concerned? I mean, I understand.
Who knows? Winter might come in 2 weeks.
It might come back.
That's true. I don't think we have.
The last one's not over yet.
I guess I'm guessing that there's probably a sense that there's maybe some unanswered questions here, and I think is that what they were suggesting, is a 2-week layover, or were they suggesting a longer layover?
Well, they didn't get into detail about that. They just lay over until I
they
think
decide what they-
other bids can be taken, so you can get a variety of costs for a variety of styles, and they would work with the owners to try to come up. I mean, ideally, they would like to see the windows replaced like that. I don't think there was a big discussion on them having to be wood or being exactly historically accurate. It was to remain 101-inch double pane and arched was really their goal.
Okay, but it sounds like maybe a layover isn't your best option.
No.
Other questions for the petitioner, as long as he's available and willing? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, close this public commentary, back to the commission. This should be interesting. All right, start with David and then John. Steve.
Normally, I don't even, support all the things that Landmarks Commission does, but I think in this particular instance, I would subscribe to at least a 30-day layover. I'm not only I'm concerned about the availability, the lack of what I'm not sure of multiple vendors putting in different product, but I'm also concerned about the process that the city has, and I think that before we start making exceptions, and especially that what everybody acknowledges is a pivotal building, and gives us the first opportunity to anchor substantive, prevent substantive changes, and to do what the real intent of this ordinance is, that it's a twofer. One is to find out if there's alternative ways to get windows that are more conforming, but also to have staff come back to us with some kind of process that we know that we can, that we know it's not ad hoc, so that, because I don't feel comfortable, well, we didn't talk about price, but we're using price. We've got to have something that's more predictable, more dependable. So I'm going to have one or two things. Either I'll submit a 30-day layover, or if you want to bring it to vote, I'll vote against it.
Okay. Steve? Then.
I would agree with David. And one thing, when you purchase a historic building, if it's not on the National Register, you have certain obligations that come with that building. You've got to respect its past, its present, and its future. You really have to be a steward to the building. It's more than just a building. There's the history of the building. The city has spent millions on the downtown revitalization, and we have, by exception, run a lot of things. We were just showing all the examples of an exception here, an exception there. I think you've made the comment with design standards that, cut by cut, piece by piece, destroy what we have. You knew it was a historical building when you bought it. The condition it's in right now didn't happen last winter. It's been happening for a number of years. So I think the Landmarks Commission is more than willing to work with you to find vendors or to keep the integrity of the building, which I think is very critical because the role it plays in the downtown. And again, cities with historic central cities, it's all part of the economic development programs we're working on. You need a healthy, vibrant inner city. And in our case, it's a very historic city. I think we have to respect that, the history of the city, and be willing to stand up and say, no, we won't just manage by exception. So I will not support the recommendation from staff, but I would support a 30-day layover.
Others? Kathy?
Well, this is tough. It is a pivotal building, but are we going to put a greater onus on the owners of this building because it is pivotal than we will on the next exception coming on a couple of items on the agenda, or on another building further down the block? That's not quite fair. To say, well, this because it's so visible. We're going to make them spend $100,000. They probably won't spend $100,000.
They won't.
Windows deteriorate further. They have no tenants. That's not a good plan either. So it looks to me as though this is not good, but they've done about as sensitive a job as they can do in the circumstances. I suspect we should be approving this. I think 30-day layover is way too long. People, winter will come quickly, and they need to be able to do this. So I would reluctantly support a 2-week layover. Find out what you can in 2 weeks. Come back to us. Otherwise, I think they've done a pretty fair job, and I would approve of this.
Carl? And then John.
When I first started reading this, I instinctively was against it. And then as I finished reading it, went through all the attachments and reread it again, I slowly came around to being in favor of what was in here. Having the comments about the Landmark Commission come up here at the meeting kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting, and I certainly understand the need for some speedy, some reasonably fast moving forward. I tend to agree with where Kathy came from in her remarks. I wouldn't go for more than a 2-week layover at the absolute most.
Okay, thank you. John and Annette? Oh, I'm sorry,
You've been raising his hand. for you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, John.
John, then Jeff, then Ed. All right.
I'll withdraw.
One of the things that it seems like we've done as a commission through many of these types of things is we've asked for people to bring in photorealistic photos, to bring in materials to show us what's going to be done. We have a black and white drawing. And for that reason alone, I would be on board with a 2-week layover, just so we get something that's more concrete to show us what they're planning on doing instead of a black and white drawing. I mean, if it's that important of a building to our downtown, I think they owe it to us to bring something before us for us to actually approve, not a pencil drawing that's in black and white with no shading, I mean, nothing. And for that reason, I would be more in support of a 2-week layover, because that would give the Landmarks Commission time to maybe come up with something in that 2 weeks, and it would allow the petitioner to bring us something a little more concrete to show us what they're intending on doing. Otherwise, it is blind faith, and we've never operated on blind faith as far as this commission goes. We always question everything. So,
Jeff and then Ed.
Couple things. One of them, somewhat disturbed that the Landmarks Commission brought this up at the end, and they're not even here to voice their opposition of what issues that they had and what the alternatives are. Just, no, let's lay it over for an indefinite period of time. Two, in terms of the process that Dave was referring to, I'm sorry, guys, we voted for that ordinance. The Common Council voted for that ordinance. If the process was such a bad process, then we should have done something in the ordinance, not say after the fact, after we look at something and said, oh, this isn't comfortable, with comment that David made, and I don't know if that's true or not, that the Landmark Commission also said we shouldn't be looking at this as an exception, we should just stick to historic preservation. I don't agree with that either. I mean, we put those exceptions in place so that we can deal with this, so we can address property owners' concerns, trying to adhere to what the spirit of the ordinance said, but trying to put in something that's also cost-effective and also good for the residents at large, or the residents that live there. Makes sense to me. I'm not opposed to having, as Kathy suggested, a 2-week layover to see if there is one or two more alternatives that may be more acceptable from an aesthetic, from a historical preservation standpoint. But on the same token, starting to go longer than that, you start running the risk then of not being able to get the project done at all, and having the residents of that are living up there go through another winter, whether it's when we had last winter or not, and having to live like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me when we have an option that was tried to stay within what some of the buildings had looked at. And it's not that staff didn't look at this in a superficial way. They did a fairly in-depth analysis of looking at other buildings downtown and how this would actually fit in. But I would like to hear, if we want to do a layover, I don't want to look at 30 days, because I think that would then prevent them from getting the work done that they needed to get done prior to the onset of winter. And I think 2 weeks is plenty of time to go out and research any more alternatives that there may be.
Ed and then Steve? Okay, Steve.
One last comment is, we keep hearing the cost issue. It's going to cost more. What is more of X? I mean, we're trying to make a decision based on no facts, no hard facts about cost. It's going to cost more. Yeah, it probably will cost more. $1 more or $1,000 more. I think we owe it to ourselves and to the community to find out exactly what we're talking about financially. And as David said, there's potential of tax credits to do it right. That's why the government has these tax credits, is to help us preserve the historical integrity of our buildings and our cities. So I think we need to see dollars.
And I just to clarify, because obviously I wasn't totally clear, my process concern was when you use a financial criteria as a reason not to not to follow through with, historically accurate. And I think that part of the calculation of the evaluation process needs to be formalized so that there's some uniformity from one project to the next. Otherwise, we wind up in a situation where one person's financial hardship may not be consistent all the way across the board. And so I think that it becomes some kind of a predictability for people coming in the future to know at least when and how they can use a financial feasibility argument.
Jeff?
I hear what you're saying, David, but then if that's going to be the case, then we need to look at that on every project. I remember just getting through on a central garage where we asked for several things to be done, and, oh, no, we can't do that. It's cost prohibitive. It's cost prohibitive. So is it only good for the city to say it's cost prohibitive to do their projects, and it's not for a public person or a private person? Is it only good that we consider cost objectives on a historical building, but not on something that somebody else wants to build because it's cheaper to build it this way than it is to build it this way, and maybe that way is a better-looking building? Do we consider cost when we say, well, geez, you got to put in more mature trees than cheaper trees? I don't remember using cost as much of an objective, even when it was raised, that, oh, we don't want to put in that sign because it's cost prohibitive. We've never done that before. And I understand this might be a little bit different because it's a historical building. I get that, okay? But I'm just saying, if we're going to have a process, then we need to have a process, and we can't let one person go and then burden another one.
There's one note on that. I think in the downtown overlay, and I don't have the ordinance in front of me, we actually did build that as part of this exception policy. We did build I think we did build a language into it about being a financial hardship. So I think that is actual part of the downtown overlay exception standards. So that's why that discussion.
Can you explain that a little further? Are you saying that?
You're saying financial hardship can be used as a criteria?
I believe we did build that into the ordinance. If we have one handy.
In the interest of trying to get through a heavy agenda, I wasn't going to support a layover. I think we should vote on this, whether we like it or not. But I will support a 2-week layover because we don't necessarily know exactly what the ordinance says, and that's kind of an issue. So I guess let's figure out what the ordinance says, and if we can have a better idea of what we're looking at and satisfy some of these questions within 2 weeks, I'd be in support of a 2-week layover. I don't think I'd be in support of a 30-day layover. I think that's too long, but we can go 2 weeks. I would make that motion to do so.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ed, seconded by Kathy for a 2-week layover.
For the 15th, I would just...
2-week layover is what you said, right, Ed?
Whatever Darren says.
For the 15th.
The next meeting.
The next meeting is the 15th.
Whatever Darren says.
Any discussion on any discussion on that motion from?
The only thing I would say is during that 2 weeks is that the owner and his contractor, like you said, was said earlier, if you can bring it, I think you said it, if you can bring in the type of materials and stuff they were looking at and a little bit better rendering of what those windows or where the options would be and the cost impacts to somebody else's point, and have some input of the side here also, that would be of help.
David?
And a follow-up on that, and I think that's well put, is that the Historical Society is understanding they've got 2 weeks to be of assistance.
In the Landmarks Commission?
Or Landmarks, rather.
Right.
I don't know who the Historical Society is.
But whatever.
We keep
Oh, the Landmarks Commission.
Anyways, that they have that the clock is running for them to be of assistance.
I was incorrect. We didn't build that in there. So we built it somewhere else.
And I
was
think
incorrect.
And I think that is correct.
Right.
Landmarks really wanted to ask the owner if they looked at any alternatives, and I know in their meeting they had said there are companies that make windows for buildings like this. And I don't think they were very adamant about the materials. They were vinyl replacements, that was fine. I think it was more the double hung and the loss of the arch.
Call the question.
All right, call a question. Call the roll, see if we... Motion on the floor is for a 2-week layover. 1 meeting layover.
Can I
Or
interrupt
15.
before you do that? It's not possible for you to get prices on historical windows.
Okay, well,
Okay, so I'm
Thank
just
you.
telling you that.
thank you.
So.
Call the roll.
Knollenberger. Borsek.
Aye.
Owen.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Ince.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Pop.
Aye.
Weigert.
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carried 9.
Okay, 1 meeting layover. We'll get as much information as we can. All right, let's move on to item number 3, conditional use permit approval for an exception to provisions of the Downtown Overlay District, 570 North Main Street, Varsity Club.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another downtown overlay design standard exception request, a little bit different. The property is 570 North Main Street. You can see it here on the aerial photograph. It is the Varsity Club. It is just south of East Parkway on North Main Street. You can see it's zoned C3 downtown overlay. It has either mixed use or general commercial along all of Main Street with some residential to the back. Again, this is that North Main Street Historic District. This is the location of the Varsity Club or the subject property at 570 North Main. This is a picture from the mid-'70s, which is relatively substantially the same as what it originally was built at. The building itself is known as the Gibson Auto Exchange. It's a single-story brick building. Was built in 1921, and this picture was, again, from the 70s, but the picture itself is pretty accurate. They call it a 20th century commercial building, a lot of ornamentation and parapet treatment, suggesting sort of that Art Deco feel of the 20s, and you can see that up on the top. The front facade, and I'm going to go to the next picture here. This is the Varsity Club as it sits today and the Gibson building as it is today. The front facade has been significantly altered over the last 90 years. Basically, there was I'll go back, there was the removal of the windows on the front and also a removal of a garage door that was located here, or a vehicle access door, and a change of the main entrance and also awnings that were placed on the building. So you can see the center was filled in with ephes. This became a double entrance rather than the garage door opening with the awning, and this is a single entrance partially closed with a single door awning that was added on it. Even with the changes to the building, the State Historical Society still considers it a contributing structure within the national and state historic districts, although unlike the other one, it is not considered pivotal. It is still contributing because it could easily be restored back to its former building itself. So, again, in 2009, the council adopted the Downtown Overlay District with the stated purpose being to preserve and restore unique and historic buildings, ensure coordinated design of new and existing buildings, minimize adverse impacts on adjacent properties from buildings that may detract from the character and appearance of the district, protect vehicular and pedestrian movements throughout the area, and aid in improving the overall economic viability of the district. So I should have probably said that with the last one as well, but that's basically the overriding district. There is 4 major changes that the property owner is proposing for his building. And I'll see if I can kind of go to that. So here's another, this is a today taken picture of the front of the building. You can see it's pretty much the same as was provided by the petitioner. And this is kind of what's being proposed for the treatment of the building. 4 items. One would be the removal of that double door that's located here, and replace it with a garage door with a fake garage door. Now, keep in mind this image is not a professionally photoshopped image, so it's to give you the idea of what would go on here, so that the main entrance would be removed from here. The double garage door would go on. It's wood with transom on the top. This doorway system would be relocated to this location with that double awning. That entryway at this location would actually be turned to be perpendicular with the street rather than parallel, so you could enter in. There would be a handicapped entrance, accessible entrance then, where you'd enter the building north-south rather than east-west. Main reason why this entryway, and I'm going to go back to the other picture quick, this entryway is no longer needed. The kitchen area for the restaurant portion and the bar is located in this area. Currently, and the petitioner can correct me if I'm wrong, currently the staff has to go into the basement to access the dry storage and a lot of the cooler storage. So this area is now going to be changed into a dry storage area with a walk-in cooler. This entrance is no longer necessary. Would be why that can be removed. I'll go back to this picture. The second thing would be replacement of that single-door entrance, as I had mentioned, over onto the south side of the building. Be relocation of that awning, which is here, onto this portion of the building. And the last would be the replacement of about 2/3 of the front facade, the IFAS front facade, with a storefront or a curtain glass storefront glass system. So I'm kind of going to go over each one of these things individually. So the first is the removal of that main entrance. Again, this building historically had a garage, automobile garage service store at this location. And I think I have let me go to the historic picture again. Sorry. It's hard to see. It's kind of shadowed here. But that is the original garage service store into the building. This was a showroom. Back in around 2002, that door was removed for the main entrance when this building was turned into a pool hall and an indoor entertainment venue. That door was removed and the entrance was put on. As I had mentioned, the interior of the business is changing significantly so that this entrance is no longer necessary. To kind of mitigate that loss of the entrance to the exterior and kind of break up the resulting blank wall that would be a result, the petitioner is proposing to construct, again, the non-functioning sort of faux garage door in an antique style to replace that entrance. The doors would replicate the appearance of a historic swing-style garage door, which obviously the appearance opens up. And it would be stained wood with a double set of windows lining the top. Staff does understand that the change to the interior really makes this entrance unnecessary. Also, when talking to the petitioner, this entrance is problematic in the location that you enter. You enter back behind the bar and you go around the kitchen area. It's not very secure, and that it's really not necessary. We were encouraged with the petitioner's proposal, put sort of a more historic element back on with the garage doors. Unfortunately, we looked at a whole bunch of old photos of Main Street. We searched the library and the museum. We were not able to find a historic picture of the front that showed the detail of the garage door. But what we did do is we did a lot of web searches and we searched some historic documents to find out what would be a typical door on a 1920s service station, automobile dealership. And what we basically found was several options. These are modern replicants, but these would be examples of some of the glass-type doors you would have found in the early 20s. They were not that typical, but this is what they would look like. More typical, what you find, and these again are not the best images in the world, are these wooden swing doors. You can see one here. There might be better images. This is a much better image. Your wooden swing door. These are obviously in very poor repair, but what I was trying to get out here is you have the double swing doors with transoms on the top. When we looked through a lot of photos, that was a very typical type service station door. I don't think they, wanted to open it all the time. They swung it open. So the proposed fake door would not be out of character with what you would have seen in the 20s. And I think the staining of the wood and the angles are trying to go back with that Art Deco feel as well. So we are in support of the removal of that double door entrance with the addition of the fake garage doors as proposed or modified to achieve the best historic reference. I mean, we will continue with doing searches on historic reference on doors and see if there's something that is more historically accurate if this isn't. But we do believe it's a valid attempt to restore that sort of that unique and historic character of the building that was always a auto garage. The second aspect was the replacement of the single door at this location with the double door that had currently been at this location. And I have, there we go. So this is the double door that's currently there. This awning would be removed, replaced over this doorway, as you can see, and then you'd end up with an entryway that you'd come in and go to the side. Again, prior to 2002, this was the main entrance into the building. There was no customer entrance on the north side. Relocating that entrance to the south side would be consistent with the way the building historically was, even though it was flat to the wall. We suspect that there was probably an awning on that building originally that was removed at some point in the 70s. There was an air conditioner stuck in the spot. But, again, we don't have the photos to show that. So we are in support of this entrance going to a double entrance. We're also kind of encouraged, and we think it's a good idea to have that handicap accessibility. And that's going to be a major improvement to the function of the building and a function of the business and the viability of the, of the building itself in the future. It goes with that, again, is the relocation of the awning. And I'm going to go see if I can find here we go. So you can see that double awning is here, and the single awning is here. Right now, those awnings are considered legal non-conforming in the downtown overlay, primarily because of their design and also the amount of advertising that's on each awning itself. Currently, the design standards only allow advertising on the valance of awnings and only 8-inch letters. So very small, and you have larger amounts of advertising on this, on both of these awnings. However, the petitioner in 2000 put these awnings up in 2007, 2 years before the design overlays. I think the cost was somewhere around $10,000 for the awnings. And in discussions with the petitioner and the property owner, the added cost of about another $10,000 to redo the awning when there's a functional one that's here right now did not make a lot of sense to him. And so his thought was to shift that over to this entrance. We, as staff, kind of agreed with that. We support the move of the awning. It is going to be a net loss of nonconformity on the building. Right now there's 2 nonconforming awnings. It would go down to 1 nonconforming awning. But we do want to point out and note that the relocated awning would still be considered legal nonconforming. So when it ran its functional life, it was torn, needs to be replaced. At that point, the new awning would have to comply with the design standards. But that allows that awning, which is relatively new, to have its functional lifespan. And again, our determination was really that we end up with 1 rather than 2. The biggest change, well, and here again is the building. We suspect there was probably an awning in this location. Oops, let me go back. The biggest change to this building that's being proposed is this front facade piece. And basically, again, what's being proposed, this is sort of the dining and the tavern area. The petitioner wants to open that up, make it more usable and customer-friendly on the interior and also from the exterior. So when you're going down Main Street and you can see the outdoor cafe, you can see into the business. It's always a good idea to have openings on the building. This goes back, even though the number of panes is not exactly the same as when it was Gibson, goes back to that same feel of the open facade of the front. Petitioner is proposing to do 2/3 of it. Again, this section is his kitchen area. And it's not really his desire to have that open for visibility because it is a kitchen area. Our records indicate that sometime in the 1980s, this building had been converted from the auto garage to a warehouse, and at that time they removed that entire front facade and blocked it up. They kept the garage doors to access, and it has remained that way since sometime in the 80s. So we really kind of struggled with this exterior alteration. We feel that the renovations being proposed, the door, the entryway, and this portion of glass area really is bringing the building back into context of what it was. However, we also felt the materials were a lot better than the IFAS that's on there, the small fixed windows, better for the commercial area and the commercial environment. We did have a lot of concern with the disparity between this 1/3 section of what will be left on the building and with the addition of the building. We feel it's very contrasting in material. It's inconsistent with the style of the building, and we actually came to the determination that even though it's what you would call an improvement to the building, it is going to detract from the character of the building itself and probably negatively impact the surrounding area. For no other reason than it looks piecemealed or hodgepodged. It looks incomplete, an incomplete rehabilitation. And in our discussions, in our staff discussions, we really broke down to say if there were only two options available, either to retain this facade, which obviously is not historic and is not ideal to the building, is very blocked off, not very inviting from a commercial standpoint, or do a two-third replacement, staff would prefer to keep this option because it is not historically accurate, it's not as inviting, but it is at least consistent in appearance. It's not piecemealed, it's not hodgepodge, it doesn't look like it was only partially complete. We do, however, also have a suggestion and a recommendation that we put into the staff report that this entire facade, I've been going back and forth quite a bit, I apologize, but that this entire facade go to a glass storefront system, and with these last two panes that would end up here on the northern portion of the facade, those to be either blacked out or heavily tinted so you can't actually see into the building. Typically, when you're across the street or down the street, the glare on the windows, you're really not going to be able to see into them unless you're right there in front of the building or sitting in the building looking out. So by blacking those out or heavily tinting them, making them opaque, it would allow the front facade to be extremely consistent, with a garage door, with the curtain glass again and the main entrance back to where it was, to its historical character, but it would also provide the property owner the security and the for his kitchen area, and also that inviting facade of the building. What our fear was, without that full replacement, that it would just look too out of place. So we are recommending approval, a finding that the proposed conditional use permit request is consistent with the downtown overlay, with one condition that the entire center facade area is redeveloped with a full-story spandrel glass or storefront glass, tinted to be opaque on that portion that abuts the kitchen. Landmarks Commission also looked at this project as well. They basically agreed with staff's recommendation that either leave it the way it is or do the whole thing, don't piecemeal it. They did, however, have one suggestion for either staff or the petitioner to contact Bergstrom, who was the original Gibson Chevy. They probably have historic photos of that front to get a better idea of that garage door. They did recognize that that is a pretty standard style door for the 20s, but to kind of get a look at what it was and try to maybe recreate it a little more accurately. But they were in favor of staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Technical questions. Let's start with Mr. Borsig.
I didn't hear any consideration with the wall sign.
The sign?
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't, when we reviewed this, that really wasn't part of their rehab project. It was remaining the same, so we didn't address it.
Is that an appropriate thing to discuss, or is it?
Well, typically, the non-conforming things that aren't, for any project, the non-conforming things that aren't being addressed by the proposal, we generally don't, we allow those to remain grandfathered. That sign, as well as the grandfathered sign in the exterior of the building, when it's replaced, it would have to meet code, but until that time, we would allow it to remain as a grandfathered or legal non-conforming sign.
Other technical questions? Jeff?
I guess when you talk about that sign, if they're removing the awning from one area and they're installing it in another, to me, that's a new awning. And it exists, but you're taking it off.
Right.
And then putting it in. I don't quite understand why the ordinance doesn't address that, okay, to David's point. And, to me, I mean, once you take it off and you remove it out of the area and you put it, it's not grandfathered anymore, it's a new sign.
He's not removing the sign.
He's not removing the sign.
That was the
awning.
Yep,
the
awning. And he is asking for the exception for the awning to be replaced on the building.
So what we would do, and again, this goes back to the historical preservation, why are we not then saying no? Because that's not the way our ordinance is written. and I kind of agree with David on the top sign either. I don't, if you're trying to change back to the historical way that it looked, that isn't part of it. And I do agree with staff's recommendation. So you're saying that either on the recommendation, I just want to make it clear that you either keep it the way it is, which is not historically accurate.
This front portion,
Yeah,
yep.
that front portion, or you put the glass in, which, from what I
All the way.
remember from the earlier photos from way back when, is how it looked.
Correct, and if you look at you can kind of see this tan bar that goes around the building. It's a I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a brick accent piece, and you can
Yeah.
see it replicated on the top.
I mean,
It was here, so
Yeah.
that filled-in area was really the area of the windows.
and is there any requirement to restore then the white outline area that's faded on that building? Would we have them do that? And then the last question would be, since that building had that front long sign on it, would it be acceptable if he changed the sign that's there to that type of sign? Because that's basically a historical representation of a sign.
Right, he could, but he could come in and probably do that sign by right, but really what we're looking at, when we look at his renovation plan, we're looking at what he's proposing to renovate. So it's no different than if you looked at a planned development site, and they were only redeveloping a third of the site. We wouldn't really address the rest of the site. We kind of leave it as a non-conforming situation. It's the same scenario here. He's addressing the awnings, the two entrances in this front facade, so we didn't really address this top portion at all. It's not a complete rehab, and it's not a historic preservation of the building. It's really what he wants to do, and does it fit with the downtown design standards. Again, these are not historic preservation regulations. They're design standards. So we didn't go above that second floor because he's not proposing to change anything above the second floor. If he were to come in and say, I want to replace this sign, we then would have to ask for an exception. He would have to ask for exception to replace the sign. Because he's moving the awning, he needs that exception. Because the front facade is changing, he needs that exception.
Other technical questions, comments? Go ahead, John.
This is just kind of a critique of the photoshopping. Okay, if we're looking, no, stay back on that one. Okay,
This
see
one?
how the EFS kind of actually somewhat matches? Then when you go to the proposed one, it's like bright white. So it's almost like trying to point out to us, okay, this is terrible. I'm just saying it's kind of a selective edit on what you're presenting to us right there.
Well-
Not defending what they're doing, just
Yeah, well, this was
understand where I'm coming from on that.
The petitioner put this together. He's not a graphic designer. He had also mentioned, and it's in the staff report, that he'd be willing to paint the IFAS, either of these spots, to be a color that would more match the building, a brownish
And
or
that's not
reddish.
acceptable at all? I mean,
From a staff standpoint, it would still to us seem very piecemeal, and we would rather have. Yep. So that wouldn't be acceptable.
Okay.
David?
Well, then a point of clarification, where you're moving the double entry to the right, is there still going to be EFS there, or is that all going to be glass or window wall or whatever?
I believe there will be EFS there.
Okay, and that, you were okay with that, EFS?
It's a much smaller portion, and it's kind of segregated by the two columns. The building's really built into three segments. In between the two columns where the garage door entrance was, the main center of the building, and then the secondary columned area. So, yeah, with the smaller amount, we were okay with it remaining there.
John? And then Steve?
So that door isn't going to be a double wide door, but they're putting the double wide awning over it.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be
Well,
double.
it'll be a door, but it'll be perpendicular to the street. So it'll be a double opening where you'd enter,
Okay.
but you'd turn to get into
Right,
the cavern.
because I'm just trying, because of the EFS that's on there and whatnot with.
Right. And the petitioner might be able to answer
And
how
I know
much
he said
is
it's
going
not
to truly
fully
be there.
built,
Yep.
it's kind of, I'm just trying to put it up here.
Yep.
Steve?
Just a very quick question. Obviously, this is a photo manipulation of what would be done. At some point, the architect has to be hired, correct, to take the plans to City Hall for a building permit?
Correct.
We don't issue building
Or
permits.
to the state, can also approve the building permits.
Other technical questions? Okay. Public commentary. Anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, state your name and address, and tell us what you know.
Hi, my name is Jeremy West. I own the building and run the business there. I don't have a problem since submitting the submittal to Darren and David. After a lot of thought, we actually have decided that we would like to go ahead and go along with the staff recommendation to make the whole front glass. We kind of agree that it would look nice as long as we can black out the kitchen so you can't, directly see into the kitchen. It is going to add to our cost of doing the whole project. But in the long run, it will look nice. It's going to be more inviting for the staff or for customers to come in. As for a question concerning the entranceway, actually most of that ephes is going to come out. We are going to. So it's going to be an opening there, and you will walk in and around, and there will be new material that will. I can't remember what we call it, what it's called. It's like a hard rock, but I would make sure that it conforms to the city's code. But the ephes will be gone. It's going to be much more presentable. And then, what was I going to say? And then concerning the awning, moving the awning, I understand removing it from the building and then placing it another way is, we are asking for a variance on that. I did spend $10,000 on that in 2007 before, had I known that the code was going to change in 2 years, I would have done things a little different. But I would prefer not to have to, I understand that, as discussed earlier, that, cost doesn't always have to be a factor. But I would appreciate an exception on that to move that over, as I did spend a lot of money on that, and it was approved then. But that's about it. I guess if you guys have any questions for me, I'd certainly answer.
Thank you. Carl.
What is the capacity of your building for occupancy?
300.
How much?
300.
100?
It's approximately 10,000 square foot.
And what size doors are you going to have in there then?
Okay, so I'm sorry. So the doors, the double doors that are going to be there, that are currently on the left-hand side.
Oops, sorry.
The double doors, those are getting moved. That panel is getting moved over, and will go this way, and will be a double door entrance, and it will go this way. So you will walk in off the street, up the ramp, and then open the doors this way into the building.
Okay.
Other questions for Mr. West, as long as he's in the neighborhood here?
Also, I don't know. We're going through Omni Glass. I don't know exactly how many panels it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be 4 or 6. I guess I don't have that. But, they're going to be the big, wide-open panels as well. I wanted to bring that up, that it does specify in there that I was asking for 4. And I apologize for my poor artwork. I have limited skills in that and did the best that I could.
Did a great job.
I just went through and took a picture off of the internet and tried to fit it as best as I could in that entrance just to give a general idea. So,
thank you, sir, very much.
All right.
Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Seeing none, that's the end of public commentary. Back to the commission for discussion. Kat?
To approve.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I appreciate the petitioner coming around to the glass windows. I think that'll be an enormous improvement.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right, let's call the roll.
Nolenberger.
Aye.
Borsick.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Tomes.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Crop.
Aye.
Feiger.
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Approved 9.
Great.
Thank you guys so much. I really do.
Good luck with that. All right, item number 5, development plan review for development of commercial strip center. Oh, pardon me, item number 4, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I was like, that's not mine.
Plan development review for expansion of UW Oshkosh Women's Center at 717 West Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The petitioner, HGM Architecture, is proposing or requesting approval for a plan development to add an addition to the existing UWO Women's Center, which is located on the southeast corner of West Irving Avenue and Elmwood Avenue. The subject site is approximately 0.6 acres in size and is zoned R5 PD. The properties to the east and south are both zoned R2 PD. The adjacent land uses include Fletcher Hall to the north and Verizon Village to the west, which are both university dormitories, and the properties to the east and south contain residential homes, which are predominantly used for student rentals, and some are owner-occupied as well. The petitioner is requesting a planned development to permit a 293-square-foot single-story addition, which is going to be located on, located on the north corner of the east facade. The addition would be to allow for an ADA accessible entry to that portion of the building. The existing site here, you can see from the aerial photo, the kind of layout of the building. There's two wings, the western half and the eastern half, which is where the Women's Center is located. Here's some pictures from the street, kind of looking east and west. So the top is looking east, and the addition will be located there. The existing entries to the Women's Center are located on the eastern facade of the building, and the existing handicap entry is actually located on the rear facade of the building, and is kind of a safety concern for the owner because it's poorly lit and it's not visible from the street. So the addition, as it's being proposed, would extend north from the building and would further encroach into the front yard setback on West Irving Avenue, and will therefore require a base standard modification to permit its placement. I think I've got a few additional facades here for you to see what it's going to look like. The existing building is set back approximately 15 feet, and the applicant is proposing to encroach further by an additional 9 feet 2 inches, therefore providing a 6 foot 2 inch setback. The existing conditions, there is a handicap ramp that runs and does provide access to the west wing of the building. That ramp does encroach into the setback as well, anywhere from 0 feet to approximately 6 feet from the sidewalk right away. So the existing proposed addition will be consistent with the existing improvements on the site, and staff felt that with the existing conditions, the additional setback encroachment would not create any traffic site issues, and the location has little, if any, impact on the surrounding properties. The proposed addition will be constructed of materials that are consistent with the existing building, and will include windows along the north elevation and east and west elevation, which you can see here on the screen, and they'll be consistent with the existing window pattern on the facade of that building, so it should blend nicely. With that, staff is recommending approval of the planned development as proposed, with the following, with one condition to allow the base standard modification for the front yard setback along West Irving Avenue from 25 feet to 6 feet 2 inches.
All right, technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? Yes, sir.
Ron Hanchy, HGM Architecture. If you have any questions, I can address them on the materials, why it's being done, et cetera.
Any questions for the architect? Looks like we believe you. All right, thanks. Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission. By Carl, seconded by. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Nolenberger?
Aye.
Borsick?
Aye.
Holmes?
Aye.
Ince?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Crop?
Aye.
Weigert?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Approved 8.
Right. Item number 5, development plan review for development of commercial strip center, 1500 block of South Keller Street.
Okay, thank you. As stated, the applicant, 2323 East Capital LLC, is requesting approval for a planned development to construct a new 2-unit freestanding commercial structure at the southwest corner of the Market Fair Shopping Center. So when we're looking at the site itself, just to kind of give you a little idea of what's around it, it is on South Keller Street, so it's predominantly a commercial use. It's C2 general commercial. We have existing commercial to the north and the south of the site. Highway 41 is adjacent to the property on the west, and then we have a City of Oshkosh stormwater detention facility that is, I believe, currently under construction. And then further east of that is the Wisconsin Army Reserve Complex, which is this R1 area here. So when we get further into the look of the site, I'm actually going to switch it to the aerial photo here so we can see a general idea of what the concept looks like. Getting a little bit greater detail about the site itself, it's 10.17 acres, and it's this whole complex in blue. We have an existing 25,000 square foot Best Buy with the adjacent Party City at 12,000 square feet. And on the north end of the property, we have an existing Cousin Subs with various open, vacant, and other storefronts in between. Directly north of the property, again, we have the Shopco Shopping Center. We have additional businesses as well as the large McDonald's. And to the south, we have the existing Culver's, WG&R Furniture, and an existing light industrial, or the M1 industrial. When we get further into the site itself, we do have a large transmission line with a 100-foot utility easement. That's the American Transmissions Company easement running through the parcel. As we start to get closer into the analysis of it, this is the existing place with the proposed reconstruction on the southwest corner. Currently, there is an existing ATM machine that will be raised for preparation for the new construction. And just a little zoomed-in shot of what this development looks like. It's 104 feet by 50 feet and totals of 5,200 square feet or 5,200 square feet in size, and it is split up into 2 different units with available commercial uses on the right-hand side, and that west-facing one is proposed to have a restaurant go into the property itself. And we can see an existing patio, or I'm sorry, a proposed patio that will be going in for the use of the site. We try to break it down whenever we get into these PDs to really go through an analysis of what the PD looks like, all the different portions of it from parking and lighting and things. With the larger site that's going on, normally we may have seen this go as a CSM and being split off into its own parcel. In this case, it's an addition to the overall larger site. So we want to take a closer look of what the actual parking requirements are for that. Calculating all of the parcels size and the parking requirements, we came out with 268 required stalls, of which 7 stalls are required for handicap accessibility reasons. The overall site has a substantial amount of parking. Even with the removal of the parking because of the new building, we're still at 400 parking stalls, and 13 stalls will be handicapped. And then when we go closer to the existing parking lot and the proposed building, they are proposing on 9 new stalls with 2 handicap stalls directly adjacent to the parcel itself. So staff doesn't see any issues with the parking requirements. They're well above the required amount. They're actually approaching the higher end of our requirements. So in the event that the owner did decide to do additional developments, there could be space for those developments within the site. In addition to normal parking requirements, we do try to get access for pedestrian ways. The developer has designed a concrete sidewalk to go to the adjacent South Keller right-of-way, and it'll be striped within the drive aisles to help for pedestrian flows and movements and actually give the pedestrians a priority in that area. I'm actually going to switch over to some of the renderings of what it looks like to talk more about the lighting and the signage and landscaping. When we get into the lighting, it does have lighting on the building as well as lighting within the parking lot itself. Currently, the submittal does not include any sort of lighting or photometric plan, but that would be required within the actual permit process, and site plan review would have to be going through that. In addition to that, the signage itself, when we get to some of the other facades, I'm actually going to show up this rendering. It does show the facade signage that would be on the building itself. It's less than the required 30% maximum on there, and so we don't have any problems with the signage on the building. They are because they're within the larger parcel, I'm actually going to go back to this one. They do have an existing pylon sign here that does advertise for the Fair Market Center. There would be an addition for the new development on that sign. So again, because of their existing sign, because of the existing lot, we don't have any issues with the signage on it either. With the landscaping, we do require that there be landscaping placed. We have large landscaping beds on the north and then on either side of the parking. As with any new parking lot construction, we always require islands within the parking themselves. So they did provide one on the east side, which is angled for a proposed ATM point right here, which replaces the removed one. And then they did place some landscaping around the patio to help create that buffer, just a little more aesthetically pleasing look to it. Normally, we would require landscaping on the parking lot side, but with the landscaping on the outside, there is no issues with that portion of it. One thing with the landscaping, though, is there was an existing island that did go all the way out to in line with this other one. By removing that, they did remove a considerable amount of landscaping, 2 mature trees, and considerable shrubbery and things like that. Within that landscaping, we would require that they do have additional landscaping put in because of that, which they can find within the proposed building area or on the adjacent terraces is acceptable as long as they maintain that ATC transmission line easement. They would have to make sure that they're conforming with the requirements of that easement. So again, when we're getting to the building look of it, we do have several different materials here. Primary will have that EFIS material, but the facade is broken up by different varying facade changes, awnings. They will have a block knee wall, including brick pillars, separate in the uses, which does give that aesthetically pleasing look to it, something that is nice than just a main facade. In addition to that, their proposed dumpster enclosure, which is actually going to be between the main building and the Best Buy directly east of there, would be made with the consistent materials. They are required to have the screening upon that, and they'll all be doing that. In addition, they'll be having screening around all of the utility structures, which when we look back on our site plan here, we can see the transformer pad is going to be located in one of the islands, and it will be screened, as well as the dumpster enclosure will be located away from the roadway and actually in the rear of the property, well, rear of the proposed building. The reason why they wanted the transformer pad here is because they did want to maintain an access way for that ATM, that if the transformer pad were to be on that building side, the ATM would no longer be a usable location for it. Staff doesn't have any problems with the transformer pad and the island itself. We'd still just maintain that they receive that same screening as they would in any other location. So with that being said, staff is making the recommendation for this, but we did want to have a couple little caveats to that, and that is with the landscaping. We did want to see additional, let me get over to the conditions here. We did want to see additional parking row landscape buffer, and that was shown on the plans. And with that, we did also request that the landscaping plan does surround the outdoor seating area a little bit more. Now, we're pretty flexible on what that would be. We just need to see those plans, and site plan review will accept that landscaping plan. And then thirdly, additional landscaping be installed to account for the loss of existing landscaping from that island.
All right, thank you. Technical question. David.
There's been incremental development or redevelopment of this site. When is there a, and I know that this is a relatively small increment, but when is there a tipping point where you go back and you say that you recalibrate what has to be done for landscaping or stormwater detention or things like that, where you get over whatever the magic number is, 40%, 50%, 60%? And where is this site in regards to recalibrating some of the newer design standards?
Well, we did look into some of the portions of it. When it came to the parking, we did look at the overall parking requirement. When it does come to the landscaping, it does get a little trickier with it. In this respect, this is one of the few developments on that frontage road area that has actually had the landscaping islands placed before they were required. So when we're looking at it, and I can actually bring over to that aerial photo so we can get a better idea of it, when they have additional landscaping inlet, we're pleased to see that it is consistent with it, and it is mature all the way down the line. in the event that they were to do a more substantial parking lot renovation, a larger renovation that's affecting a larger portion of the property, it would probably be appropriate at that time to be looking at the parking, landscaping buffer islands, putting in those gaps that's appropriate for the end wall islands, as well as some in between at that point.
Thank you.
Other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Once, going twice. Okay, back to the commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Discussion? Let's call the roll.
Nolenberger.
Aye.
Warsick.
Aye.
Holmes. Hintz.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Pop. Weigert.
Aye.
Whitehead.
Aye.
Carried eight.
All right, let's move on to item number 6, Plan Development Amendment, 3735 South Washburn Street.
Okay, thank you. This is actually a revisit of a plan development amendment, or a plan development that came through in 2012. Actually, the resolution was 12-4-14, and this one's in reference to some landscaping that was brought up in question, and the petitioner's looking at some of those issues pertaining to that. So I'm actually going to take a step back and just refresh your memory about what the original PD was for, and then we'll take a look into the greater detail of it. So on August 21st of 2012, the subject parcel and the adjacent one, this is the subject parcel currently that is putting out the request, but at the time they owned the two of these. This is on the southwest corner of Ripple and South Washburn, and they went through for two things, one a PD, and then the second one was actual a lot division. With that, everything did get approved through it. They wanted to propose the Big Rig Chrome Shop, which is the existing building there and the one in question, and then the rest of it was left agricultural. Plan Commission did motion the approval of that with some conditions, and the first condition is the one we're here today for. The condition was a natural style of detention basin be utilized involving planting of emergent plants in the safety shelf area and native plants on the side slopes. This is a fairly consistent thing that we're doing with all of our plan developments now, and any sort of development that does go through this process. We do like to see natural plantings around the detention basin facilities. In this case, the petitioner is looking at doing a different motion for that. So getting into the existing surroundings, kind of the formalities here, we do have the property right here surrounded by agricultural uses. The Highway 41 is to the east, and then the airport obviously is a little further on. And then to the north, we have the existing golf course and a two-family unit right here. And here's just an aerial of the existing building. It's a little fuzzy because we grabbed an image that's just a little bit blurry, but it does show the building itself, the hard surface to it. This is a little truck parking area for display purposes. And then the primary front bed here is the storage basin facility with a wet pond or wet basin here and some of the runoff that goes to it around it. So when we get into it, this was the approved site plan that came through the Plan Commission. It did change a little bit since then. In particular, there was an extra entrance that was placed on the north facade, and including some extra transformers. And then the main electrical transformer was brought to the front of the building. It's no longer on the south part. The island is still there, but the front has the transformer pad. Otherwise, the main detention basin, the truck storage area, or the display area, and that main island is still consistent. And if you guys remember, part of the conditions were the shared driveways for future growth in the area. This is a fairly dark image, but it does show the existing building facade with the front island and the storage detention basin. And then I have an additional two here just to show the side facades of it. So we can see it is a fairly pleasing looking building. They did do some landscaping in the front. And on this previous image, we can kind of see this front bed right here that was placed in accordance with the landscape plan. And then we do have additional landscaping in the front of the building, as well as substantial trees on the north and the south sides of the property. I wanted to bring in, this is the actual approved landscape plan that was brought in with it. We can see the mature bedding that was planted and along the primary north and east facades, and then the large amount of trees that were required on the north and south property lines. And then the portion in question is this landscaping bed here. when we get into the looking a little bit more of it, I wanted to have us get an idea of what some of the landscape embeds and why we require this emergent vegetation to be planted on the side slopes as well as on the safety shelf. And it really is, we have 4 reasons for it. Safety, aesthetics, water quality, and deterrence. And I'll go through all of these as we look at these images. The safety portion of it itself is the riprap side of it. It makes a very difficult situation to get in and out of in the event that some sort of accident were to happen. When we look at these here, we can see that all of the riprap is below the water line if it's installed at all within the construction of it. These 2 on the left are actually the City of Oshkosh owned detention basin facilities. This is the West Haven one, and then this is the one off of Moordock Avenue by the Pick and Save area. And then on the right-hand side here, this is behind the Jackson Street Quick Trip. It's more of a ditch style with turf vegetation and landscaping. And then in one of the UW Oshkosh parking lot detention basin facilities. That second one is the water quality. With talking with our engineering department and the stormwater department in particular, they did say that there is some studies out there and there's some notification that having emergent plantings on the safety shelf and within the basin can or could possibly help to deter that particulate flow. It helps to slow down the water flow coming in, helps settle out the water, and that's one of our larger issues on water quality in this area that we're having to really fight with. And then the third one is the deterrence side of it. This particular one, and I'm actually going to go back to our landscape plan here, this particular storage pond, or storage basin, I should say, is directly adjacent to Highway 41 as well as the airport. Having emergent vegetation on the safety shelf helps deter waterfowl and other animals from using those ponds or using those basins for their purposes, and it can help keep those birds away from them. We know Highway 41, the last thing you need is birds and other things like that, and even more so with the airport area. So deterrence is another portion of this. And lastly, that fourth one is aesthetics. These are highway corridors. These are main entranceways into the cities where all of these detention basins are located. And aesthetics is one of the primary reasons that we look into it. The riprap side of it, though functional, doesn't have that aesthetic look that some of these other ponds do have. When we get into the existing locations, I have some additional images showing closer up of what these ponds look like. We can see that all of this was supposed to be landscaped to the water line, and it was not in this case. This is directly adjacent to the truck display area, the semi-display area, and then directly around the whole pond. So there's 3 portions to the landscaping plan that wasn't covered in addition. The landscaping beds around the east facades were not put in, and it's a little far away, but we can see that they weren't put in around that east facade wasn't to the thickness of it, and as well as the north facade. 2, the electrical transformer was not properly screened. Even though the location was shifted, the landscaping didn't shift accordingly. The landscaping is still on that previous location. And then 3, the riprap was not installed properly. The applicant's reasoning for keeping the riprap, and as it was stated in the staff report, was that the riprap or stone increases the aesthetic look of the corridor and would help to deter that marsh or swamp-like look. With any sort of detention basin, if it's not properly maintained, not properly managed, and not properly installed, sometimes there is that concern about plants getting in there that would not supposed to be in there. That is also the case with riprap or any sort of material. If it's not properly maintained, it would still grow some sort of weeds and things like that. So the applicant wanted to make sure that the commission is aware that he was doing this with regards to the aesthetic nature of it. Wanted to make sure that that kept up. We are always, as a group, are always willing to look into this. This particular concern was not brought up to us before. It was installed, and then we were brought up to the situation after the fact. But in either way, the Plan Commission did assume or did write that was a condition to be put in, which is consistent with it. So with those recommendations, staff is recommending denial of the plan development amendment to allow the installation of the riprap on the safety shelf and the side slope. We're also having 2 findings because of that. One is the condition 1 of the original resolution, 414 was not followed. and then two, the landscape plan that was approved did not show the riprap. It did not show any of the landscaping that they put in. It did show a different form of that. So staff is making the recommendation that the basin be constructed as approved in Resolution 12-414, and the landscaping be brought up to the original requirement from the Plan Commission.
Thank you, Ben. Technical questions? David?
Even though this is adjunct, but they also unilaterally moved the transformer?
Yes, the transformer was shifted from the south facade to the east facade. Normally, something like that wouldn't have to go through the Plan Commission. It would go through the inspection site plan review process. It's likely there was a legitimate reason for it to be shifted. Unfortunately, the screenings weren't installed around that transformer pad.
Other technical questions? Okay, seeing none. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? If so, come on up and tell us what you think.
Tony Womack from Bigger Chrome Shop. I guess a lot of the history was covered, so that was nice. On the question you had about the transformer, that wasn't our choice. I wouldn't prefer to have it in the front of the building. I do agree with all the changes that need to be done for the landscaping. We did have a late project, I guess, basically to get done. I did plan on doing the landscaping in multiple steps, so I will have everything finished when it comes to mono shrubs and trees. I definitely agree with that. We did have a meeting with the staff before this started to talk about some of the trees that need to be moved or asked to be moved that were blocking the truck display. A few of those we pushed to the sides, and then some of those didn't really have the room as shown on the drawing as we were done after everything was complete. So the trees themselves, the quantity was there. We pushed those to the side of the building and opened it up to display so you could actually see the truck display. The shrub count is less than what is on the plan right now, and we will move that to where it needs to be. And our landscaper broke up the project in multiple steps, and the second step would finish the rest of that. So the original reason why this was brought up was just for the riprap, not necessarily for the landscape aspect of it. The riprap was put in mainly because of aesthetics and the quality of the look. I looked at many of the ponds in the area and realized that I didn't like the look. Not that anything was changed. I did not know about the natural foliage that had to be around the pond. I did not read that clearly. And I went above and beyond and put the stone in there at a decent amount of expense to make it look nice, knowing that there's a lot of traffic. It's on 41. There's traffic on all four sides of this pond, and just to maintain it in general. I did not know about the overhead. I do have some pictures. If you guys are looking. These are the first page is showing pictures of many of the ponds in the area that do have riprap. They look very nice. And this was the way I was planning to go. Keep in mind, as I mentioned, that this was never meant to
Thank you.
go around any kind of rules or conditions. The first page basically has a bunch of different ponds with the riprap. The following page has a bunch of ponds that show the foliage out of control. It looks very swamp-like, not pleasing, and that was the angle that was moved to. Now, there was four things that were brought up. Safety aspect of it. I guess I would argue some angles on the safety. Having riprap on the bottom of a pond, to me, would be a little more stable than having swamp-like mush conditions that could be very deep, and having a lot of cattails and other uncontrollable weeds. aesthetics. I strongly believe the ponds with the riprap and stone look much nicer. And then and the water quality, even as the staff mentioned before, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of background if that is better with or without the foliage in there, but I could not find anything to base either side. And in terms of the waterfowl, I also researched that as well. I could not find anything that actually promoted or did not promote that. We have not seen any waterfowl in the front. It's a smaller pond. There's a lot of traffic. From what I have read, cattails are used in nesting. There's feeding, there's insects. There's nesting in the plants themselves. So I really would think that, if anything, an open area is probably more deterrent for any kind of birds. And I've yet to see any birds actually use that, I think, due to the traffic and being on 41 and being in frontage of everybody. So the whole angle behind all this was basically for looks, and being that most of the things we did for this building were for looks, from the EFIS, and a lot of the changes were done that way. Very beautiful building, and I'd like to keep it that way, so that was the angle that this was.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for David?
Multiple. Were you aware that this was a condition of building your building in occupancy?
No, I did not. I was very surprised. The stone was very expensive to add, so even in the email that I sent, I was going above and beyond in my eyes. When they did bring that condition report saying that we were not up to standards, it was definitely a downer on my aspect. I went that way. I went that angle. This wasn't to go around anything. This was to make it better. So it would have been a lost expense, basically.
So I'm a little confused that when you bid this project out or whatever, that you or your contractor didn't know what had to be.
We obviously nobody caught it. So I mean, I would agree that this was after I went through all the paperwork. After this was done, I've seen it written multiple places. So this was not a hidden word. I'm not saying that this was. But me, as I'm the owner of the building and the business, so I had other things on my mind. I was not looking at the rules of the area. I was trying to figure out how to move the business over here. That was not my priority, I guess.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Yes, Jeff.
To bring the landscape up to where it was intended to be, what's your time frame on that?
That can be done fairly quick. I do want to get some recommendations and assistance from staff because the landscaping plan does show a lot of the landscape and shrubs in there that I believe are very tight. So I might need some guidance to maybe add additional flower beds or landscaping pads, because even that front entrance area, I forget what the number was, 60 or 80 shrubs in that area. Even what we planted last year have already doubled, if not tripled in size. So if we would have put that many shrubs in there, even at the first planting, I feel that many of those would have to be transplanted or have done something with them, because we really haven't packed in there. So any kind of suggestions of how we can put more landscaping pads would definitely be a plus. But the number and quantity, I'm all for that. It's not an expense, it's an issue, and it definitely would add definitely to the look.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, back to the commission. David.
I would suspect that not only did this go through a PD application, but that those conditions were when the site plans went for construction, when they went for review. So this wasn't is not a mystery thing. I think that the Plan Commission over the last number of years, where we've had the ability, been very consistent on what the design of a stormwater detention pond is. Whether it was by omission or intentional, and I take it that it was omission, though I'm surprised that even the contractor, when they designed the plans, didn't have it figured in, that this was a greenfield site, and there's no justification for this site plan to be changed. I'll vote for denial of any change.
David. Other comments? Motions, perhaps? Jeff?
Yeah, this is a little bit more difficult one for me because we have an existing issue, and, yeah, it came after the fact. Riprap, to me, actually, from an aesthetic standpoint, when you talked about the 4 issues, is actually more aesthetically appealing to me than natural weeds growing up. I mean, I have a detention pond down for me on 9th Street that has its natural vegetation. I drive by it every day, and I think it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And it does look like a swamp. Now, it may serve some useful purpose. I'm not 100% sure exactly what that is, as also driving past that particular retention pond, there seems to be a lot of varmints that like to live in that, those weeds and stuff. In terms of the water quality, again, I can't speak to that. I'm not an engineer, although where this particular pond is located, I'm not sure if I'm that concerned about the water quality of where that water is running, since it's running into his retention pond that's on his property. It's not getting into Lake Winnebago, which is the prime concern of the environmental area of Wisconsin is. So, you know, if he's going to bring up the existing landscaping, I'm not that concerned about riprap. Like I said, I mean, I also look at it as, from a safety standpoint, as riprap, it can be, I mean, I can understand that the growth is determined because people can't get in it as easily. However, it's also determined, I don't see too many kids, you know, walking in on the Aurora riprap trying to get into that lake. I don't see too many waterfowl on that particular lake. The riprap that's in front of the hardware store, I mean the, not Menards, the other one, Lowe's, again, doesn't appear to have waterfowl. It doesn't appear to be aesthetically unappealing. So, although this wasn't the intent, currently I don't have a problem with the way it looks from an aesthetic standpoint, and I don't have a problem with him having time to put in this additional landscaping. So I'll be voting against this recommendation from staff. I think that's correct.
Sounds like Mr. Gordy, it looks like Mr. Gordy has a comment to make.
Yes, sir.
Just one clarification. The discharge from this basin does go to Lake Winnebago. The water quality item here is to collect the runoff from the parking lot, treat it prior to being discharged to the system that carries it to Lake Winnebago.
And what's the difference in water quality between riprap and a natural vegetation?
For the suspended solids, it is based on time in the basin. The vegetation does not have a large impact on that. The vegetation is better at taking the nutrients up of phosphorus, nitrogen, those aspects that contribute to some of the algae blooms.
Kathy, it's a question for you, Steve.
So a natural riprap in that basin is going to assist the city in meeting its water quality standards down the road? I mean, in a micro kind of a way?
This being a new development and under the rules of new development, the city does not get to claim any benefit from that. They had to meet total goal. We don't get to claim a benefit from someone meeting what the law is at the time they develop. Now, down the road, if this development doesn't, if the standards increase and we would do something additional then to bring it up to the current standards, we can get credit for that incremental change. But for I don't think I'm doing a very good job of explaining this, apologize, but for the new developments, we do not get credit as the city reduction because it is a new development. It did not count as our base load at the time it was established. This developed after our base load was determined.
Jeff again?
But it doesn't further add to our problem.
Correct.
And you had indicated that I just want to make sure I heard right, whether it's riprap or whether it's natural grown, doesn't affect water quality.
From the current standards, no. In the future, when they're looking more at nutrients, there is the possibility, but for meeting the current regulations of the state and the city, the riprap does meet the water quality standard.
And do you have any information as to the third aspect, one of the four criteria that either riprap or naturally grown has a determinant on waterfowl?
Typically, geese will not like a confined area where they cannot see the shore. You will find that the water, the basins that have the taller vegetation have a much lower population of geese that will get into them because they like to be able to get up on the shore and see what's going on directly without having to get through the taller weeds. David?
I think that something may be lost in this, and that is that this was a condition for the development of a site. And whether it was a pond or it was landscaping or whether it was the exterior or the setback, that if we don't support the staff here, what we're saying is it doesn't matter what the conditions are. If somebody thinks something's aesthetically better or that it fits better on the property after the site, after a plan is approved, that it doesn't matter. We'll just do what we want and then beg for forgiveness afterwards. This is for a variety of reasons is sending the wrong message, and if this was to be intended that there might have been a better way to do it, you come before you change something and then expect us to react to after the fact and what the conditions are that a facility was built.
Back to Jeff.
David, I don't get that. We absolutely do this every damn time. We sit there and we use a conditional use permit. I don't have a landscaping plan, I don't have a sign plan, I don't have this, I don't have other, and we pass it anyway. And we don't know what's going to happen after the fact. Even if it's a conditional use permit, we don't know what that sign's going to look like, we don't know how big it's going to be, but we pass it anyway. And then it's done after the fact, it never comes back before us to take a look at it. So I don't see where we're being inconsistent here. I don't see where we're not supporting staff here. I'm seeing where we're taking an isolated instance and saying, okay, yes, it wasn't done correctly. What do we do about it now?
Let me just interject on that point. We as a staff, as a plan commission, as a city for the last few years, have been pretty consistent when a plan development has come through us that we have required the natural plantings on the shelf. I don't think there's been a time that one has come through that we've not shown that concern. So the riprap basins are something that we've been pretty, from a staff perspective, from a plan commission on up to the council and these approvals, that has been consistently a condition placed on the detention basin. So this is not a new requirement. We've been doing it for the last few years. So it's not a surprise, and something that we've been very consistent with. So just I want to lay that out there. We have been consistent in this.
Bob and Kathy?
The question that I had, looking at these pictures, we've got several with this riprap in there without the weeds, and to me they look a lot better than the weeds, and I'll agree with Jeff on that. I've seen too many of them with these tall cattails and everything else sticking up in there, and it just, to me, it takes away from the whole area. And I guess my question is, what determines when you allow riprap and when you don't?
Kathy? Or is that do we have an answer? Or is
typically it comes as through the plan development process when we're looking at the various aspects of the site. That's when we make that determination.
Kathy, and then I've got a comment.
Well, a few years ago, we evidently allowed riprap, and now we don't. We changed our ordinance. And this really, if we don't deny this request, it sends a horrible message that, oh, go ahead. You don't happen to personally like natural plantings, not weeds, natural plantings, well, I'll just do it my own way. It sends a horrible message. So I'm going to vote to support the staff on this.
And I would, basically, I think we could have a lovely discussion about ripraps versus plantings, depending on where it is. This is partly outside of town, but unfortunately, I think that I would agree with David and Kathy here that there was a condition, wasn't followed, and permission was not asked before the change was made. And to me, that's how we make this decision. But other comments before we hopefully take a vote?
Motion for denial.
And then you vote against it.
All right, I make a motion to approve the condition.
Second.
Seconded?
I'll explain, just so everybody knows.
So the motion is to approve the amendment, so if you agree with the riprap, you're voting affirmative. If you are not agreeing with the riprap, you are voting no.
Thought that was just the opposite.
No, she's got it right.
The request is for approval.
Yes.
Remember, the request came in.
Yeah, we're not voting on staff, we're not voting on the staff recommendation, we're voting on his request.
So a yes vote means you approve
Yes
of
for
the
riprap,
No.
no for no riprap.
No riprap. Okay? Nolenberger? No. Borsick?
No.
Combs?
Yes.
Hintz?
No.
Cummings?
No.
Pop?
No.
Weigert?
Yes.
Wojtek?
No.
Denied 2-6.
Item number 7, comprehensive plan land use map amendment for property bounded by U.S. Highway 45, County Road Y, Riff Road, and the Wyowash State Recreational Trail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request the city received is for a comprehensive land use map amendment of a 2.849 acre property located in the town of Oshkosh. Up on the screen is an existing land use map. The subject site is located between Highways 45, and this is County Road S, and just south of County Road Y. The property currently has a zoning of A2, which is a agricultural district in the town of Oshkosh. And the city's recommended comprehensive land use recommendation is residential in this area. There's an air photo of it. And here is our comprehensive land use plan for the area. The petitioner is interested in acquiring the property for a possible development of a Puro Clean disaster recovery and a microbrewery. It would be a standalone structure of 2 tenants within. The property recently went through a zone change request through the Town of Oshkosh Planning and Zoning Committee to rezone the property from its current A2 designation to a B3, which is a Town of Oshkosh General Business District, to allow the proposed development, which is consistent with the Town of Oshkosh's comprehensive land use plan. However, when the zone change was submitted to Winnebago County's Planning and Zoning Department, they denied the change due to the conflict with the City of Oshkosh's residential land use recommendation. The City of Oshkosh adopted its current comprehensive plan back in 2005 from a previous plan which was completed in 1993. The city's land use maps are very general in nature, making for general land use decisions relatively to the city's land use control regulations inside and outside of the city. Over time, adjustments to the maps have to be made. We realize that things change from a land use perspective. In this case, when this was originally mapped, this was mapped prior to the Highway 45 construction, and as you recall, this was formerly Highway 110, which ran out of town to the northwest. Since that time, of course, Highway 45 was developed. I'm going to zoom out to the next one here. This is just a... I'm going to turn off. Right, here we go. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, this is a broader area of the 45 corridor. Back when this was originally mapped, Highway 45 was not in existence. It was Highway 110 running through. This parcel right here, which is currently slated for institutional uses, it's a parcel owned by the Oshkosh Area School District, and at that time, the school district was proposing construction of a new elementary school in this area. So back when this was mapped in probably 2004, we saw a higher need for, or potential higher need for residential growth in this area. And looking at the existing land use pattern along here, there's several existing residential units or residential properties along this corridor. Now, when staff received this request, we decided to take a look at the broader area. Now, this area in pink is an amendment to what the petitioner is requesting for a land use amendment. What the city is looking at is amending approximately 34.16 acres of land from the current residential and a little smidgen of industrial land use recommendation, and amending the comprehensive land use map to commercial designation. That would be consistent with the town of Oshkosh's land use recommendation. Up on the screen here is the town of Oshkosh's comprehensive land use map. With that change, the current status of there's 11 single-family houses within this area, one standalone a standalone accessory structure. There's some mini warehousing development which was built down here, and a contractor yard which I believe is down here. The existing status of the existing houses would not be affected due to the use allowance is regulated by the current zoning of the property, which is not changing or not being proposed to be changed at this time. So all the existing houses would still continue to be conforming uses until at some time a new zoning or a zone change is requested. Upon review of this request, staff is supporting changing this entire area instead of the single standalone parcel from residential and industrial to commercial land use designation. First, to be consistent with the town of Oshkosh's comprehensive plan. Secondly, from a land use perspective, it makes sense. County Highway S more or less serves as a frontage type road to Highway 45, and staff sees potential for commercial redevelopment along this corridor at some future time when market dictates. And we feel that the highest and best future use of this area is for commercial development. So staff believes this change request is warranted, so we are recommending approval.
All right, technical questions. Jeff and then David.
I'm confused. So, right now, you're just looking at changing the comprehensive land use map designation.
Correct.
To commercial. However, the current zoning remains as is. Correct. So that we don't create a problem for the existing people that have residences.
Correct.
By changing it to commercial, and
We're doing nothing with it. We're doing nothing with the underlying zoning. That's still that's under the town of Oshkosh jurisdiction. We're simply changing the land use plan, and we're recommending the change of the land use plan to be consistent with that of the town.
So if we change the land use plan, then this petitioner, it's okay, that'll allow him to move forward with his particular development?
Correct. Then the county would be able to accept their zone change, which was approved.
David.
My question was answered completely.
Great minds alike. Other technical questions?
Not earlier.
All right, seeing none. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. Tell us your name and address and what you got to say.
My name is Brian Bradley, 4330 County Road S. My home is adjacent to this property to the south. I really don't know where to start here because I do have a conditional use permit for my piece of property, And the hoops I had to jump through back in 1989 to get that, because we looked at rezoning our property also, were considerable and frustrating for a small business. My business is no longer viable due to my retirement, due to the Highway 45 destroying my property as far as traffic going past my store. That piece of property originally was owned, or still is owned, by the Grundy Corporation, and there was a house and a double garage on that piece of property. And I would imagine was zoned the same as we are, residential, agricultural. I really don't have the wherewithal or capital to just go arbitrarily burn the house down and have it rezoned commercial for my own benefit. There are several of us on that strip of land there that like to see our homes value remain the same, although they've been drastically reduced by the 45 corridor. As far as a business being right next to me with lights, noise, time constriction, signs, and just imagine yourself in that same boat. And I just heard this mentioned about the planning on going ahead as far as the 45 corridor and restructuring that as commercial. There is no exit or entrance between Riff Road and Winneconne. So it's location, 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 and you're not going to get people wanting to put businesses like fast food restaurants, gas stations, and such, and that kind of thing on there. The other thing is the mini warehousing that has been put up out there, to me, is about as akin to, as offensive as the billboards on Highway 41. To me, they're the bane of any commercial existence in any residential area. So I'm, without going into a lot of the details that we had to go through for our conditional use permit, I really don't want to see us get the triple whammy from the DOT, the town of Oshkosh, and the city of Oshkosh planning. I urge you to not make this a area for development.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir. Nope. Mr. Green shirt first. That's okay. You'll be next. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dave Jacobson. I used to live just down from the Bradleys. I own property.
What's your address, please, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your address?
4300 Tony Trunk S. I years ago went down and went to meetings such as this to the town, and I had the property that I owned is 7 acres. I had that put on the land use map at the town for commercial. If this all goes through, you know, it's not going to do any difference to the home, unless I sell it to go to commercial. But it's evident that in the future, all of that land is going to change. You have commercial with Castle Pierce right on the corner. There's a church. Bradley had his business at one time, a small business. If you go down the road to Y, there's many structures up there that are storage and small businesses to there. All open for potential. Since 45 came through, it took land from me, other people around us. There isn't a whole lot much left there. County Trunk T is the first interchange or first cutoff from 41 for all the traffic going north. People in the residential area down by the lake, if they want fuel or any of this versus getting on to 41, they have to put on fuel more. The next exit would be 116, which goes into Winneconne. There's nothing really out here. It's, you know, we can see it when the city bought up the 40 acres there for the middle school. Something was going to happen eventually. And that's why I went to the town and I had mine put into commercial. So the next step is in your hands.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir? Blue shirt?
Tom Haber, 4325 County Road S. You live kind of diagonally to this proposed land, and if they want to put a microbrewery in, they must have an awful lot of water consumption requirements. We've had problems with the wells in that area since Grundy's reactivated their pit, and at any rate, I would discourage this classification.
Okay, thank you, sir. Come on up, sir.
Dan Dringoli. I live at 477 Dalton Road in Neenah. I'm the petitioner in this action, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things. What's before you now is not necessarily what's going to go on that property. Whether the brewery goes on there or not is I guess, up to the town if the zoning would change. But regardless, that 2.8 acre site started out for sale at $199,000 and has slowly gone down and down and down. I'm a golfer at Lake Bridge Golf Course. There are two parcels right along Highway 45 there. One of them is an acre and a half, and the other is 2 acres, I believe. The one parcel's been for sale for the last 5 years for $18,000, and the distance between Highway 45 and I believe that's hole 15 there, where that parcel is probably 3 times the distance that this spot is to Highway 45. I would imagine that if that had any value as a residential area, that a golf course, somebody living on a golf course would want to snatch that up and put a home on there. The reality is that nobody is buying a house, or I guess it could, if you left it zoned agricultural, no one's going to buy a house where you can basically kick a soccer ball and cross 45 with it. When you stand on the lot line, it is literally, I believe the right-of-way it's 30 feet, and you're on Highway 45 with trucks going 65 miles an hour. It has no desirable use, from my perspective, as a residential facility, because other lots are not selling in that area that are much more desirable, that are farther away from Highway 45. So I guess unless the town was going to turn it into a park or something of that nature, the most usable area there is to put it up with some sort of business. There's also a parcel that is south of there that's, I believe, 6 or 8 acres that there's no way anybody's going to build a home on that either. It's closer to Riff Road there, and that's been for sale for a long time as well. The proposed property that if PureClean just goes there without a brewery, the traffic and impact to that area would be no different than the storage facilities that's there, Pascarella Construction, which is right near there, be similar. My company does not, at this time, the PureClean business does not have foot traffic, drive-in traffic. We go to people's homes, we fix them. We just have a shop that's currently located in the town of Algoma. If the brewery does go in, I do believe, and the gentleman might be right, if the water quality is not there, I'm not going to put a brewery in there. But it still doesn't change the fact that the zoning future use should be changed. If it does go in there, it's an asset to the Wyowash Trail. The trail runs right through there. The parking lot for one of the trailhead parking lots is right across Highway Y. The Boy Scouts put in a nice little area there. People park trailers there, and it's a way to access that trail. The brewery would serve that use. Folks from the city of Oshkosh could come down the Wyowash Trail on their bicycles, walking, hiking, however they want to do it. There would be a place that they would have bathrooms, a place to get a soda, water, a beer, and relax. It would have a little picnic area. It would be an asset to that area. We certainly don't want to be unfriendly neighbors, but I really think that if it does go through and everything goes the way we're looking to do it, that it's really going to improve that area, if anything.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments or say? Come on up, sir.
Jim Erdman, I'm the Town of Oshkosh chairman. The reason we're here is not for a zone change. We're here for a future land use map plan amendment. The Town of Oshkosh did a future land use plan back in 2002. City staff was at these meetings for 2 or 3 years, and they put that this area here would be commercial because of the highways there. Was at the time it was Highway 110 and County Highway Y. Well, since then, now you have Highway 110 turned into County S, and now there's US 45 and interstate. Now these lands are sandwiched in between. It's even more viable for commercial, for future land use. It's not the zoning we're changing here. The folks that have either residential or they're actually zoned ag, but they have homes, whether they want to call it rural residential, they're zoned ag here. That zoning, their zoning stays the same. But we had a proposal before our town to change the zoning for the subject property here from ag to commercial, and we held a public hearing at our plan commission meeting. It was in the local paper. It was posted. There was the neighbors were notified, and there was a large sign out in front for quite a while telling about this public hearing. And we had the public hearing at the town planning and zoning committee, and there wasn't any opposition in that. And because it's consistent with our future land use plan, the town did change the zoning for this parcel, and then the town board had the final say, and they approved it and then turned it over to the county. And the town last year got out of county zoning, this not being in the shoreland area, it's town jurisdiction. However, the county reviews it, and it goes to the county board, the zone change. Well, by statutes here, the county has to accept the city's future land use plan 3 miles beyond the borders. And so our whole town, the city's future land use plan, it gets reviewed by the county, and if there's an inconsistency, the county then will recommend not approving this before the county board. That's why we're here, to see, because there's a difference between the town's future land use plan, which was done in 2002 for commercial here, and the city, which said it was residential from way back. I think you said going back even to 1993. Things have changed since then. Your staff has brought that up about the interstate highway, the school not going in there, whatever. And this subject site here is a parcel that was created because the interstate highway was put in there, and now where it was part of the Grundy property, it's a site that no one's going to build a house there. Right. And yet the rest of the site, the rest of this property here is, the best use is, your staff said, is for commercial. Same is consistent with the town's plan here. So the present zoning for those folks that are out there, nothing changes until they themselves ever request a change to a different to a different zoning. They're zoning, they're conforming zoning under what they are, agriculture and rural residential, nothing changes for them. Just that in the future, if somebody did propose to do commercial there, it's not a given. It still comes before the town board, and it's not a given that it's going to, any of those future sites there or where there's homes now are ever going to be changed. It's up to it'd be up to the town planning zoning committee in the future or the town board. So right now, I think you're just asking to make the city's comprehensive plan the same as what the town has had since 2002 here.
All right.
And the town board did not make a recommendation to object to that.
Okay.
In other words, to make your plan the same as what the town's plan is.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Urban. Anybody else to speak on this item today? Okay, seeing none, back to the commission. Kathy.
Well, I'm going to move approval because we had a workshop on this. We had a good discussion, I thought. And for once, the city is not the bad guy. I like this.
All right.
The town brought this request to us via the county, and when we looked at it, we decided that it made sense.
Right.
So this will only really affect that one parcel that he's talking about. So I think we should go ahead with it.
Second.
Been moved by Kathy, seconded by David. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Kathy, are you approving the whole area or just the one lot?
No, the whole area.
Okay.
Staff recommendation.
What's as requested? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Recommendation, staff report.
Yes, that's what I just did. Nolenberger?
Aye.
Borsick?
Aye.
Holmes?
Aye.
Pence?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Pop?
Aye.
Geiger?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Approved date.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded, all's in favor? Aye. Okay, move on to workshop, I guess.